The third episode of The Night Agent Season 2 kicks off with Peter answering a call on Warren's phone. This moment sets the stage for a flashback that takes us 7 months into the past. During this flashback, we see Rose attending her very first interview for a job at Adverse, a company that plays a significant role in the story. The CEO of Adverse is visibly surprised during the interview because Rose is clearly overqualified for the position she's applying for. Despite this, Rose insists on taking the job, showing her determination and drive. Fast forward to the present, and we find Rose waiting at a bus stop. Meanwhile, Peter is on the phone with Jacob Monroe, a man who was responsible for the disastrous Bangkok mission. Jacob is a dangerous individual, and his motives are far from noble. He pressures Peter to turn himself in, claiming that doing so will save Rose's life. Jacob knows that Peter is the only person who can identify him, and he wants Peter dead to eliminate this threat. Peter, however, is not willing to give up so easily. He doesn't trust Jacob to keep his word and decides to find a way out of the dangerous situation he's in. While still on the phone with Rose, Peter warns her to start running and gives her directions to escape. Unfortunately, Peter's own escape is delayed because he's being hunted by a sniper and at least 2 assassins. This creates a tense and suspenseful sequence as Peter tries to navigate his way out of the building while staying one step ahead of his pursuers. Meanwhile, Rose is running through the streets, trying to follow Peter's instructions to stay safe. She dashes through kitchens and alleys, doing her best to evade the danger that's closing in on her. Despite her efforts, she is eventually confronted by Solomon, one of the assassins. A fierce fight breaks out between them, and Rose manages to stab Solomon, giving her a chance to escape. However, Solomon isn't seriously injured, and he continues to chase her. Just as Solomon is about to catch up to Rose, Catherine appears and pulls her to safety. Catherine hides Rose and helps her evade the assassins. Unfortunately, during this chaotic moment, Rose loses contact with Peter. This leaves Peter worried and anxious, fearing that Rose might have been captured. After successfully escaping the assassins, Rose sends a text to Peter, letting him know that she's safe and with Catherine. She suggests that they meet up, but she's aware that Peter doesn't fully trust Catherine. At the same time, Catherine offers Rose protection and advises her to return to California for her own safety. Later, Peter, Catherine, and Rose reunite. Catherine is clearly frustrated by Peter's lack of trust in her and refuses to work with him unless he agrees to cooperate. She demands a debriefing and shows Peter a photo of Solomon. Peter immediately recognizes Solomon as the person who killed Alice. He also tells Catherine about the call he received from Jacob and reveals that Warren is dead. However, Peter lies about Warren not providing any useful information before his death. Catherine threatens to remove Peter from the case, but Peter counters by pointing out that he's the only one who can identify Jacob. Reluctantly, Catherine agrees to keep Peter involved and promises to look into Solomon. Peter requests money and a car, and they agree that he will continue to protect Rose until they figure out a long-term solution. Back at home, Rose and Peter have a heartfelt conversation about her future. They discuss whether she should stay in New York or return to her job in California. That night, Rose has a nightmare, and Peter comforts her. The next morning, they talk about her struggles with PTSD and her ongoing therapy sessions. They also begin to focus their attention on uncovering more information about Solomon. At this point, all they have is a photo of Solomon and no other leads. However, thanks to Adverse, they managed to find a newspaper article from 6 years ago that mentions Solomon Vega. According to the article, Solomon Vega was a former Marine who died 6 years ago. This revelation raises more questions than answers, as it suggests that Solomon might be using a fake identity. Peter decides to search government records for more information about Solomon. but he discovers that Solomon's files have been deleted. This leads Peter to believe that someone powerful must have erased the files to cover up Solomon's true identity. Meanwhile, Rose tries to use Edwards again to gather more information, but she finds herself locked out of the system. Her boss calls her and angrily revokes her access, accusing her of misusing the app to stalk people. He insists that she return to California to discuss the future of her job. Meanwhile, Noor continues spying for the Americans. She tries to get information about Abbas's schedule by flirting with Jawad. But Jawad is a smart security officer and does not reveal anything. So, she decides to plant a tracking tag inside Abbas's coat. After her boss and Jawad leave the embassy, she secretly follows them. She takes pictures of Abbas meeting with Solomon and securing a briefcase. She also captures close-up shots of Solomon's face. Noor then contacts her CIA handler and sends him the photos. However, she does not have any pictures of what is inside the briefcase or what was discussed in the meeting. She promises to gather more details, but her handler warns her that it is too risky. Since Noor is not a trained spy, she makes a mistake and gets noticed by Jawad. Luckily, she hides quickly, so Jawad is unsure of what he saw. Later, when they go out for lunch and take a walk in the city, Jawad casually asks her about her day. Noor lies again, and he believes her. Meanwhile, we meet Thomas Bala, the son of a war criminal imprisoned in The Hague. Thomas contacts an old college friend who now works for the Foreign Secretary. He asks Elliot to speak to the Foreign Secretary on his father's behalf. However, Elliot refuses to make any compromises. Thomas is disappointed, but his wife, Sloane, tries to comfort him. Despite these setbacks, Peter manages to find an address for Solomon's sister, Celeste. He and Rose visit Celeste, who's disabled and still grieving the loss of her brother. Celeste feels guilty, believing that Solomon quit his job to take care of her after she was injured in an accident. During their visit, Peter secretly takes Celeste's mail and finds a bank statement showing that she receives money from an organization called Kincare Trust. Peter and Rose suspect that Solomon might be using Kincare Trust to financially support his sister. Rose contacts Catherine and expresses her desire to stay in New York with Peter. She also offers to help Catherine gain Peter's trust. Later, the three of them meet to discuss the case. Peter hands over Celeste's bank statement to Catherine, and she updates them on her investigation into Solomon. Unfortunately, Catherine hasn't found much because Solomon's files have been wiped from the system. Peter remains focused on the events of the Bangkok mission and demands to know what Catherine's investigation revealed. Catherine admits that her investigation turned up nothing. Frustrated, Peter finally opens up about Foxglove and plays a recording of his interrogation of Warren. The scene then shifts to a group of military officers loading a truck with what appears to be sensitive materials. However, the truck is ambushed by masked men who kill the drivers and steal the truck. This event adds another layer of mystery and danger to the story. Meanwhile, Peter agrees to continue protecting Rose, and Catherine clarifies that Rose's involvement in the case is unofficial. She also reveals that Mosley is already working with the CIA to investigate Foxglove. Catherine shares that Solomon's photo was recently captured by an Iranian spy, and she assigns Peter and Rose to take over the case involving Noor, the spy. The episode ends with Thomas receiving a voice message from his cousin Marcus. Marcus informs Thomas that they have taken the entire truck, which wasn't part of the original plan. This cliffhanger leaves viewers eager to see what happens next.